Welcome to Mindful Drawing. I'm Robert, and I'll be your guide on this meditation practice that enters a space of mindfulness through the act of drawing. And this week I want to explore something that's been rolling through my head for a while, as this semester I teach a advanced design studio on how we can, should, and maybe will use AI tools in the design of things, architecture in my case. Anything from refining the way we talk about something through text interaction to generating images of new possible worlds or making full three-dimensional things that we can turn into materials and imagine new ways of constructing that world. Something in that that's interesting to wrap your head around a bit is, how does all this strange stuff work when you type a query, ask a question, or ask for a generation of an image, new cat playing with a keyboard kind of situation? Where does that come from? How does the mind of the AI work? And maybe not so different from ours in some ways. And so this drawing that we'll do today explores a little bit of that from my point of view of the understanding. Maybe there's another one out there from a more technical point of view, but thinking through drawing, thinking through visualizations of how the world works underneath the surface, even though we never really see it necessarily, helps me kind of think about how to approach a problem. And maybe this is a way into that problem of, what am I really asking this intelligence to do for me, or this predictive generative system to do for me? Don't worry if you have no interest in AI. Drawing's not really about that, but it leads us through a process of mapping a complex probability space and seeing how that query can bring repeated resolution, new paths forged through old paths, building layer upon layer of experience into a final condition or imagination. I'm going to switch between a lot of different pens today, just some thin pens, thick pens, markery pens, just to allow for a lot of variation to form out of the drawing. A pencil could work really well for this, just all on its own, or a single pen tracing lines over the top of each other will do fine too. So go ahead and gather your supplies, establish your space, and let's draw together. The thing about today's exercise for me is that I've had to draw this similar diagram a lot, and I don't know how right or wrong it is in terms of the real way things work, but it's a rough idea of how some of the AI systems work and why they're so funny. Especially the ones we've used some in architecture that deal with images. But I also think it's an interesting map of kind of probability space and just a fun little path to take for drawing. So it'll be quite wiggly and open. Just a kind of an exercise of the hand. So if you have a nice pencil, heavy pen, I don't know, I have a bunch of things around, some pens, some ink to do various plays of pressure for the drawing part. Feel free to use anything there. Do a little introduction, and what we'll kind of see a lot of is forming that fuzzy territory of probability, potential stuff. So it could be a little of anything in our medium of drawing, pen or pencil. That could be a squiggle, could be little dashes or slashes, could be shapes, whatever it is. I think I'll work just these like squiggles. And the squiggles can sometimes play with each other, sometimes do their own thing, always along their route. And you might start to think of that as being little curves and lines in space. Sometimes they are actually close to each other in both 2D and 3D. And other times they might be heading off in another direction, and so they just cross and do whatever they want. And you get this ball, this density of possible intersections, possible alignments, possible overlaps and disconnections that'll form out of it. As I said, I'll use this squiggle thing because, I don't know, the fuzziness makes sense to me, but if you want to use little shapes, that would work fine as well. We just have a undifferentiated complex space of movement going on there as part of our guide. And to start myself actually with a bit of a lighter pen, and maybe come back to this heavier one a little later. Just kind of feel the first movements a little easily. There on the page, big empty space, taking some time to take it in. Maybe let the hand move around it, get a sense of where it is relative to the body and the way you're standing and working. Notice if there's anything you need to just make some little adjustments to. Maybe check in with the shoulders and the back. Make sure they're set in a nice, relaxed and comfortable position. A couple of rolls, or just full expansions of the airways. To settle that in, be present distance, present connection to the page in front of you. And this page should go on forever outside of its currently described rectangles. So think of our world there. So if things come near the edge, they just live farther beyond the boundaries of our vision there. With the tool in hand, finding a place visually and through the feedback of your drawing hand and the instrument to begin, and just play a bit of squiggle. A squiggle that only represents itself, that motion, fun movement of the hand that we'll focus on for a little while here in the beginning. Any squiggle can start from any place. And they said sometimes it may play along with and then just go on its own route throughout the page. So get some moments visually of coherence. If you have your eyes open or if you want to let them kind of close and soften, you can just begin anywhere and then they'll all be a bit arbitrary and random, but still potential for crossing, aligning, playing out in their own part of the territory. I'll keep my eyes engaged, notice how the little string can work along and then reach out and do its own sort of thing. As we draw several of these, starting to bring our attention into the hand, just noticing for a few rounds how you move it. You don't have to start to do anything different with it. It is very controlled, bit of a writing, grip and stance. Perhaps you hold it a little bit out, just a little more painterly. No need to adjust them, just see what you're doing now. Is the wrist fairly fixed, or does it move around a lot? An observation in time as you let the brain unravel along the path of the curve. Let the hand do its thing that you find comfortable or engaging. And just play a bit on the page. As you start to be familiar with the way you're engaging, you can notice that connection to the body. Again, just an observation time. Are you still in a position on your chair or at your desk? Or do you move a little bit with the motion of the tool? Continuing to let it dance and squiggle its way along, sometimes sharing shape with others, sometimes finding its own path. And now present in your body's interface to the page, start to align it a little more with our whole being here. Track it along with some of the breath. A simple cycle, breathing in between those moments of engagement. And exhaling as you begin the journey of that winding stream. Playing with the pen and its motion on the page, as much as playing with the rhythm speed, cadence of that inhalation and exhalation. So you set everything up with the inhalation. You can play out with the exhalation. Maybe it flexes a little bit with however the curve takes its shape. A pulse around a corner. Quickening and slowing to match edges or free play out in the open. A time of connection, hearing that cycle of breath, hearing it respond to the movement of the hand, feeling out that whole deep inhalation, feeling out the mindful connection between the hand, its action, the interface to the paper, the slight resistance or movement. And the little pulses and alignments of the breath with that action. We get a few more rounds of this, really sinking into that relaxing breath cycle. We already have there so many squiggles, so many playful journeys. Few more, few less. Just letting it unfold at the speed that's comfortable. As we begin to switch our mind's attention from the open observation, the dance between the eyes and the hands, and the breath, to a little bit more looking inward, a little bit more mapping through the territory. As you feel ready, bring your last squiggles to an end for a moment. If you have another instrument, pen, pencil, or something, you might switch it up here and there, just to play a little different, but no need, all will work fine. And within this now, sometimes aligned, sometimes connected, sometimes separate world, let the eye scan over it, to the left to right, to the left to down. Let the whole breath perform a scan. And maybe just let it wander around, sometimes getting pulled into a movement or an edge, sometimes lost in the tangle. And on your next inhalation, let the eye come to rest somewhere that catches it, anywhere, little place, over there. And within that new little area, find a boundary and begin a smaller, lighter version of the same general idea. Little wanderings, kind of make a moment there. No unique paths filling out, coming near, engaging with the edges that first caught the eye, but they can do their own thing, cross a little, combine a little, and make a little clustering of something there. We'll go through this a few rounds at your pace, a few quick items, and then a moment of rescanning the map, letting it draw you in somewhere, and then playing a little bit smaller, a little bit quicker game of the curves or any mark filling out the territory that catches your eye. Some of them might be clear shapes, obvious, that bring your attention in. Some maybe complex, dense regions that just have that knot, that connection that brings some interest to the eye, catches us at a glance, shimmers a little bit into the foreground. We give it some attention. Slowly developing these little pockets, playful little strings, dancing, curving around each other, testing their edges, taking up a little space, nowhere particular to go. Just a collection of points, moving along and leaving a path behind them. You might notice bigger spaces and smaller spaces, long and narrow, wide and open. They can all start to take their own influence, or provide their own influence on the play of the curves. The hand negotiating them in that smaller zone, territory, shaping shapes. The only relationship we really have is the way those fingers bend and flex, the way the wrist supports the hand to dance its way across that empty space that we find with our eyes, bringing a little more density, a little bit more cohesion to a zone, the node emerging from the chaos, the mess, the undifferentiated, when everything is its own thing, its own moment of interaction and play. It all falls to the background. And a few of these nodes pop out of that into our foreground, seeing, of interacting. Of searching through that complex, unknown space of probability, of possible things, possible relationships, maybe here captured for a moment still, but perhaps any of these curves is always moving, always shifting around, responding to forces underneath. Dense network of possible connections. And now that we've mapped a few of those, we have regions of interest, perhaps regions that we can find along the way. We'll begin a little search for them. At any time we can oscillate between these different scales, the more larger, more full body hand, playful space, the smaller finger detail, playful space, guided by what we see and what we find. And this other space, the space of searching through, finding our way. You can kind of imagine entering a query. I'd like to find something that looks like that. Those might be here. Our queries come from outside and they start with a little wiggle, a little moment, the way we imagine or phrase what we're looking for. And so we'll start a few of these queries as little points beyond the primary place of the map. And then from there, head inward towards something. But we take the paths that we can switch paths, redirect, and eventually find our way in. This pen is near its end. Switch it over. The path, perhaps mapping a certain way through the network, not so different than driving, or riding or walking through a city. A city just a little different shape than we're used to. You can even take the same path a couple of times and find different routes into the same region. Searching for ways to something we see in there. A little dot, the starting point of the search. We travel along a line. We might reach an end. Need to jump. We're finding our way eventually. Noticing differences in the formations of those. Some paths clean and neat through the territory. Find our way in. We find a nice smooth road all the way to where we're searching for. Some paths take a long way around, bending, flexing, finding dead ends, and eventually getting there. The destination defined by the query of the dot. Path to it. Always a new exploration of that space, possibilities, probable coalescence, potential relationships, potential dead ends. And you can kind of imagine, like any journey you've taken, walk along a different path, every little frame of that journey, passing through something new. So as we start, we find first our way of going, and along that route we pass through many things towards where we want to be. Kind of think each moment along there, a new experience, accumulating some memory until it reaches through all the way to the held place at the end. And taking these little journeys, it's a little bit my understanding about how some of the more complex generative systems emerging for us today work. There's a huge place, possibility, probable paths towards a categorized little cluster of things. But we never know where we're starting because our searches are relatively arbitrary to the system. Show me a cat, show me a dog, show me a red barn in a field. Somewhere in there is that thing, and all the other things kind of like it. And as we search along the available paths, eventually we might get to some collection of them. But depending on which way we go through it, we might get strange influences, new interpretations, a color from this or that, a shape from here or there, that in the end becomes the thing we look for, but with its own unique expression. So it'll take a few minutes to keep following these paths. Right now, just searching, learning along some curves, letting it have adventure, get lost, and then find its way somewhere, and see what you find in the drawing. the more queries we make from a similar place or towards a similar goal, the more the paths, the roads get worn in, become heavier, thicker, more expressed in the map, more possible as a road of travel, the rut worn in a little bit. And so we might find some consistency to our movements. Maybe the ink attracts the pen a little bit more to glide along it, make it a little harder to see some of the less traveled paths. Things become more familiar. But then there's a little chance every once in a while to just head off on some unknown trajectory, some strange loop through the space. It builds up a whole new path of experiences. And as you feel ready, let the pen and pencil come to a rest. Let the eyes zoom a little bit. See the whole thing at one time if you can. A little bit of focus to defocus. Maybe a little squint to slightly blur all the edges, to let the heavier lines, the more traveled, more intense paths come to the foreground. The lighter maze of playful winding curves drift into the background and begin to see a more refined network, even in the squiggles, playfulness of the knots. There's only so many paths we travel. It's not a tracing of every way, but a refining and layering of queries towards a unique place within the network. Take a couple of breaths with that whole map vision in mind. Maybe let the eyes close and just hold it there in front of you until it, on its own, dissolves, diffuses back into the little colorful dots that sit behind our eyes. And when you're ready, on an exhalation, let the eyes come back open, looking wherever they are, maybe out in the space, maybe down at the drawing, maybe the screen in front of you, and diffuse the world back into its parts that we're used to. So as I said, who knows if this is what's really going on under the hood, but you can imagine there's little clusters of information, all the cats we've ever seen, all the pictures of buildings that already exist, all of the comic books and video games fed into the training of the system. And they kind of live roughly around each other in some ball of space, wires cross-connected, some floating on their own, unique, more prominent, some densely packed around everything that looks kind of like them in the generic not a thing. And that space is huge, depending, again, on the model, the data set, the training, how many things are in there that it has seen before, that we have seen before in our mind. It works a similar way. Little structures of memories and neurons and associations. And then we pick a query, show me that new modern building in a landscape. Very general query. That point starts somewhere, a random place perhaps, a seed generated from nowhere, finds its closest path, asks, where is this? Where is the new modern building? Oh, through this zone we must travel and pick up some influences, and then where is landscape? Here are some landscape zones, and then where do we see them together? Oh, over here, and we spend a little time wandering that space, picking up our mental associations, developing our imagination, and then here we go. Here's an image, here's a thought, here's a description. Our imagination working similarly, combining influences, merging them together, starting with that fuzzy space of colors behind the eyes and slowly resolving to something we see visually, maybe express through drawing, through our own artwork and painting, through our description in text, whichever way we become creative. That's why we see that creativity in the AI systems as well. They are a mirror to ourselves. Now, who knows if there's any thinking behind them? Well, there's not really any thinking behind them. They're just predictive generative systems for now, but they do something similar to us, and so they start a process, and then we can let our thinking take over and see where that process takes us. Hope you've enjoyed the exercise. If you do, give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, come back every week or so for new episodes of Mindful Drawing, and explore the back catalog if you'd like to. I hope you subscribe, and I look forward to sharing these thoughts and exercises of mindfulness through drawing with you. Have a wonderful rest of your day or evening, and draw well. Thank you.